Greetings, and thank you for investing time with us today. My name is Ryan Ohlson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Abundance Wealth Counselors, and today I have the privilege of interviewing some very special guests, which you'll have a chance to meet in a moment. But before I introduce them, let me kind of set the stage for our conversation today. As a parent, one of the most important things that I kind of need to get done is to help my kids make good life decisions. But it's a challenge. And when it comes to college, that is right up there at the top of the list of important life decisions that they're gonna need to make. With rising costs, with the increasing number of options that are out there, it's overwhelming. It's complex, it's overwhelming, and it's really tempting as a parent to just encourage my kid down a familiar path, the same path I walked, right? Go to the same university that I went to. And, you know, if I'm honest with myself, the familiar path isn't always the right path. And when I look at college dropout statistics, more than 40% of college students are dropping out. A third of them are freshmen. Defaults on college student loans are going to cost taxpayers an estimated $31 billion over the next 10 years. I mean, the stakes are high. Maybe they've never been higher, and the process is just a challenge. But in comes our heroes, the college coaches. And so I'm really excited to meet with you today. Just to introduce you, let's see here, Kathleen Glynn-Sparrow. You've had more than 22 years of experience counseling students and families through the college search process. You've held high-level leadership positions in education over the course of 25 years, so lots and lots of experience. You visited more than 150 different universities, different colleges, developed really close relationships with many of them. You have some special relationships also with high schools in the DC, Virginia, Maryland area. And you've also co-authored a book titled Sex, Drugs, and the SAT, Getting Out of High School and Getting into College, which I've read, and it's absolutely a must read. Caroline Byers, you have more than 15 years of experience in education, most recently working with Kathleen at the McLean School in Maryland. So interested to see how that dynamic plays out now. Maybe get some inside scoops along the way. But you also served as an admissions officer at Mercersburg Academy and created a special program for 9th through 11th graders as they were kind of going through the college process as well. So that's really exciting as well. And then Greg Schneider, your path is just, I don't know, I think it's really cool. It's a really cool path. When I read your bio, I was like, wow, how about that? So your path to your current role as department chair of the English Literature Department at the McLean School is, like I said, fascinating. You hold a BFA in Theater Arts, an MA in Art History, an MS in Education, and you were a teacher for Cirque du Soleil. Yes. That's amazing. And then you were a director, actor, and stage manager in both the professional and community theater along the West Coast. I thought it was fascinating as I was reading your bio too, just how the creative nature, your background just lends itself so well to your particular role and contribution with the team, which I know we'll delve into later.
Well,
but
I did not take the straight and narrow path.
No, but what a beautiful set of gifts and experience that you have, and to see how you've aimed that at the college essay and helping students through that, which again, we'll dive into it later, but that's just fascinating. And just how you really, I wrote down, you capture the college admission officer's attention. You help the student do that while showcasing their abilities, their accomplishments, their ambitions, their aspirations. I'm interested as we move along for you to tell a story or two about that. So anyway, thank you for joining us today and for taking time out to really highlight the important work that you guys are doing. So let's start off with just how'd you get started in this and how are you serving families today?
Absolutely. Well, the College Coaches has been around for about 20 years, so just about as long as I have. Kidding, a little longer than 20. But I think one thing that I really enjoy about the college coaches, is that all of our teammates are educators. They've been in the classroom, they've been in the trenches, as we educators like to say in a loving way, for years. So they know how to work with young people. They have patience, they have a sense of humor, they have empathy, they have excitement, all of these qualities that really help bring the talents and the joys and the troubles too to the surface for young people. So we've been around for 20 years, but I've expanded it recently during the pandemic. To be honest, I love the schools I've worked for. I've been in schools for 26 years, but the pandemic did show me I had enough faculty meetings, enough lunchtime duty, enough carpool duty, and I was ready to just focus full time on the college coaches.
Great. That's great. Well, looking at your website, I see you serve families in a variety of different ways. You coach on interviews, you help them with the essay, with the application process, helping them make a list of colleges even to look at, to visit. And I'm sure a whole lot of other things as well, but everything seemed to flow from the family meeting. So could you talk about that and what happens at the family meeting? And
Sure. So the family meeting is kind of an organic way to begin the dialogue of the process. I'm sure those of us with teenagers at home know that at dinner time, students are not saying, "Mom and Dad, let me tell you about my future. Let me tell you about what I want in college." So for a lot of families, it's that first time that they sit down and actually hear each other in a safe and objective environment, because there's another person present that's not family, so everybody's gonna be on their best behavior and talk well. The family meeting, we have a little questionnaire that we have the student do ahead of time. Takes 10 minutes, because I've learned in my time that if you ask a student to do anything more than 10 minutes, you're going to get answers of yes, no, I don't care, whatever. So if it's 10 minutes, you get very thorough answers. And we use that as a launching pad for discussion during the meeting. It contains basic questions like, what are you taking now? What are you taking next year? Have you thought about teacher recommendations? Are there any colleges you're wondering about? And the main thing is, I always tell students, it's fine if you don't know. You're not supposed to know everything now. This is an exploration, and it's a process. And process implies you don't start and you finish like this. You start and you finish. So the family meeting, at the end of that's about an hour. We do those in person, or we do them depending on where the client is, or we can do them over Zoom. After that, they've got a roadmap. They've got some of their jitters released, and they've got a lot of their initial questions answered. And we've all met each other.
Yeah. And usually it takes us one family meeting, or you'll have a couple, or
Yeah, one family meeting, and then after that they have the option to have us do an expanded college list. And we use what we've learned from the student in the meeting and from the parents or guardians in the meeting. We create a personalized college list. It's not a generic, here's the list for A students, here's the list for B students,
Gotcha.
etc. It has a little soundbite for why that school is on the list. After that, it's choose your own adventure. However much or as little help you need, it works for us.
Well, I think as you're describing this, I can kind of see why or how you're different than others out there. But in your own words, how do you see yourselves as different to your competitors who are trying to serve families in a similar way?
Yeah, I think there's a practical answer to that and a philosophical answer to that. The practical answer, there are no packages. A lot of college counselors say, give us this much money and your kid's going to meet with us every Sunday, whether he or she or they need to or not. It is only pay for what you need. And I think that is also a bit reassuring to families. They're not putting this big investment into something they already don't know anything about. Like, I hope it's going to be worthwhile. That's just adding anxiety. Philosophically, I think our team is different because we meet the students where they are. And wherever you are is the right place. It's not you're behind, or, oh, I should have done more extracurriculars, or, oh, you don't like writing, this is going to be a disaster. And we always pepper in humor and empathy. And both of those attributes, I think, just really kind of make the process much more human and much more workable and friendly.
Yeah.
I think there's also such a wide variety of both the students and the parents, and trying to get them on the same page. That's part of that process. Like you said, my career path was a little windy, and I got there eventually, but it's working with them through the different parts of that process. And as they become more comfortable with us and more comfortable with themselves, actually, that's when they really take off.
And I think too, we really focus on fit. What is the right fit? And any school to which a student will eventually apply they should want to go to. And if they don't want to go to that one, it should not be on their list, regardless of if it's a likely school or not. And I think that is sort of at the heart of everything. And we communicate really, really well. Students will work with potentially all of us, depending upon, we all have different strengths, but also when it becomes crunch time, our calendars are open to anybody for whatever they need at that moment.
Well, I imagine that parents, families, their students will come in not always aligned, not always on the same page. Maybe the kid doesn't want to go to the mom or dad's, alma mater, things like that. But I imagine you bring some ease to those situations, telling your parents there's a lot of great universities out there. You don't have to go to that one. But how do you do that? How do you bring the student and the families, student and the parents kind of in alignment?
Yeah, well, I think oftentimes the parents come from, all the time, they come from a place of caring. Everything they say and do is well-intentioned. They want their cherub to find the right college, right? But it's the way they go about it sometimes that really actually is doing the opposite. It's getting in the student's way. And they need to get out of the student's way, still be in the sidelines, but not impose their own agenda and their own thoughts. So how do you do that? Every parent comes into the meeting, here's what his or their thoughts are. And then oftentimes we invite the student, well, what do you think? And the student is like, what do you mean, what do I think? And we're like, you're the one who's going to college, your parents have already been, and we've been, and what do you think? And kind of invite the student into the dialogue and give them a voice, because it's there. And the parents don't mean to crush it, but sometimes they just want everything to go right so badly that they end up having the opposite effect.
Well, I think it's also basic psychology too, because you could tell your daughter something, and we could tell your daughter something, and at least in some ways, they're maybe more likely to listen to an outsider, someone who's not their parent, on certain things.
You're absolutely correct. I'm seeing some of that, experiencing some of that firsthand with my son in Little League Baseball. The other coach can come alongside, and he's so receptive, and I get a little bit more resistance when I come alongside. So whether it's that or advice, I totally see that. When students have other extracurricular activities, it could be theater, music, sports, how do you integrate their coaches or their instructors into the college decision process?
They're really our partners in that process. So let's say for athletics, we can't really judge a student's athletic prowess, so we lean on the coaches, the high school coaches or the elite team coaches for sort of a knowledge of what their level is. And they can give, sort of a suggestion of lists. We can add to it, also help very much so with the actual application process. It's not unusual for a student to come to us who has been recruited and will only apply to one school. And then just help them complete the application in a manner that is that they're happy with. And also, again, just sort of, we're not the parent. There's a timeline of events, and we're the ones helping them through it rather than a parent nagging them.
Yeah, and I think even if they're being recruited, the school is looking for other aspects that the student's going to bring to that campus.
Yes, and making sure they're all highlighted.
Yeah, and the same with someone who's in the arts. I mean, there are extra steps. There's portfolios if they're fine artists. There are maybe dance auditions or singing auditions if they're performing artists. So it is a longer process, takes a little more time and a little bit more organizational ability.
But it's something, yes, we see it as bringing the other mentors on board too, and into the picture, and just making sure that we lean on them as much as possible to sort of help the family go forward.
Gotcha. Well, you've certainly convinced me. Like I've got 5 kids. My oldest 2 are right in that range. My oldest is in 10th grade. So just about to embark on it. Like it's about to get really serious kind of deal. And where would I start? How do I get started?
I think when is as important as how. It's the when is it right for your kid? And for kid number 1, not that you're ranking your kids, the eldest might be ready to start at a different time than the youngest. So I always say to parents, when is your student emotionally available to begin the process? And what I mean by that is if you said to Johnny or Jihad or Jenna, hey, we're going to do a college counseling meeting. And they're like, great, I'd love to get started with the process. Then, okay. And, you've got some type A kids like me and little gal on the left there. She's not so little anymore, but I've known her for a long time. Or you might have a student that just feels immediately overwhelmed and says, I can't take this on right now. I've got this, that, and the other thing. And then they're closed off right now emotionally to the meeting. The meeting's not going to be as productive. But having said that, I prefer sophomore springish, summerish to begin the process because it stretches it out like a good piece of taffy instead of compressing it into everything in junior year because they're going to have academics, testing, possibly, grades, extracurriculars, visit colleges. So if you can start it gently sophomore year as a family, if you're going to over the river and through the woods to visit grandmother, maybe you stop and hit Muhlenberg, Susquehanna, Bucknell on the way, or maybe you're vacationing in Arkansas and you want to go see colleges just driving by on the way, not like, do you want to go here, but just, this is what an urban campus looks like. This is what a big state school looks like. This is what a rural campus looks like. So a gentle introduction, I think, is best.
Time is a luxury in this process, I think. And the sooner you begin, the more time you have. And I think it does sort of lessen the stress. But in sort of on the flip side of that, we can meet families wherever they are. It's never really too late. It's just getting started is the most important thing.
Sure.
Maybe November 1st is too
late. November 1st, the main deadline's right. That's true, but it's, exactly.
But
that's right.
It works out, though. It's crazy. Crazy things have happened.
Yeah, we have met with students that have come in 2 or 3 days before their application is due, and they still have an essay to write. They still have an application to fill out. So, I mean, it can be stressful.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think we've ever missed a deadline.
No, we've never missed a deadline, and we're not going to start now. But that's true. You guys bring up a great point that we've had seniors come to us in August and say, I don't like my college list, or I don't know where the summer went. What do I do now? And we don't say to them, that ship has sailed, too late for you. Instead we're like, all right, let's do this. You're going to meet with Mrs. Byers, do your Common App on Tuesday. You're going to meet with Mr. Schneider and do your essay next Tuesday. You're going to meet with me and we're going to talk about the virtual visits you did, because at this point we don't want to send you all over for visits. So we can do the triage and move them forward. So wherever they are in the process.
Yeah.
I do think at least by junior year, they should be somewhat invested in the process and start thinking about that. That's how I first got to know Kathleen.
You're welcome.
Yes, I was looking for a school for my 2 pugs, and she suggested the local doggy daycare, which actually worked out perfectly. No, we worked together. Right.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
No, we worked together, and we piloted a program at McLean School, and I teach 11th grade English, and we thought that would be a great opportunity the last quarter of 11th grade to write the college essay. So then the student could have a solid foundation in the essay, and maybe they use that essay, maybe they put it away for the summer and come back to it, but at least they have that beginning, and then there's not so much pressure senior year.
And that the stress level is greatly reduced if you go into the summer with a solid essay. Yeah, that's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, I work a lot with the students and their essays. And one question I always ask when I'm first meeting a student is, what would you like to write about? And I would say 95% of them say, I don't know. Mm-hmm. So that's the process, because it's difficult to write about yourself. Yeah. And I think the essay is a very important part of the application because it's the face of the application. Some things are already set. They've been building their GPA since freshman year. They have a certain number of courses, required courses, electives, but the essay is one area where they can put more individuality into their application.
Well, that's a perfect lead-in to the book that you co-authored, because in that book, Sex, Drugs, and the SAT. I just like saying that title. Just Sex, Drugs, and the SAT.
That's the point of it. We wanted a catchy title. You know?
Yeah, maybe that grabs the teenagers' attention a little bit too.
Maybe,
like, yes, getting out of high school. Yeah, and getting out of high school in the wrong way. Not getting thrown out of high school.
Exactly.
Getting out of high school and getting into college.
Right.
But you say the essay is perhaps the most critical part of the application because it's the aspect of the application over which the students have the most control. They really can put themselves on center stage, and they have their opportunity to really influence. It's not some grade that somebody else decided on. It's their voice.
Right, absolutely. And I think, you raise a good point. Maybe we should change it from getting out of high school to staying in high school. I'll make a note of that.
That's volume 2, right?
Exactly, volume 2, I love it, yep. So a little bit more on the essay. I think there's also this innate writer's block because it's been built up. Your college essay, I've got to write my college essay, like it's so important. And I always tell students, you've been preparing for this your whole life. You're living your life, you're doing you, and in every English class, history class, you are learning to write. So it's just taking your skills and picking one thing that you want to do.
And you're telling a story about yourself. And it doesn't have to be a large story. It doesn't have to be something grand. It doesn't have to be something profound. I worked with a student just a couple of days ago, and she was petrified of starting her essay because she said, I have just talked with my best friend. She knows American Sign Language. Her grandmother had a stroke, lost her ability to communicate. So she's going to write about how she worked with her grandmother to teach her some sign language, and now her grandmother's able to communicate, which is a beautiful story, and I'm sure it's going to be a beautiful essay. But not all essays have to be about something like that. I think some of the best essays are some of the lighthearted essays. If you have a sense of humor, that's great. If you can give a unique perspective on something. One of my favorite essays is, I've been waiting to say this line, I raise ducks. That was the first line. This is a student who lives in suburban Chevy Chase, who brought home 5 ducks. He was with his father. Mom didn't know about them. The additions to the family.
Moms never know.
Yeah, moms never know. But he started in that first paragraph talking a little bit about that. He talked about their names. They all had great names like Phyllis, Sam, Quacklin Kennedy, Count Quackula. And then he talked a little bit about starting an egg selling business. So right there in that first paragraph, without actually stating it, he's showing an admissions committee that he has a sense of humor, that he's unique, that he has a loving and supportive family, and then he's a budding entrepreneur without actually coming out and saying those things. And also that first sentence is going to grab someone's attention and make them read a little bit more.
Well, you mentioned in the book, many of the parenting mistakes they seem to stem from a lack of engagement with between the parent and the child, and in the years leading up to the college decision process in particular. So, as teenagers become more like a teenager, that distance can grow. So in your experience, how would you characterize the impact that can have on that, like when the parents are really, really engaged versus one that is maybe playing a little bit of catch up?
Right. I think parents who kind of subscribe to the idea of scaffolding, being there to support the student, but not carrying the student or lifting them up is a good approach. A mistake that I often see, and Greg will heartily tell you that I've made plenty of mistakes with my kids. I'm sure he'll have his own show about that. But I think one of the mistakes they make is doing too much, as I mentioned earlier. And as you mentioned in your opening remarks, Ryan, about they look at it with their own lens. Like, this is how it was 30 years ago, so this is what we're going to do. And they have that lens in terms of, well, that school was easy to get into years ago, so, and actually now that school has a 7% acceptance rate. So instead of, because I think it's because their desire to control and guide and assist, it's like, this is what I know, these are the schools I know, this is what we're doing, instead of kind of turning the kaleidoscope and letting in a little bit more light and a little bit of other people's views, most importantly, their own kids' views.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure those parents see you as their trusted advisor then. So that can maybe allow them to back away a little bit from pushing forward their own beliefs or what have you.
I think you start with building that relationship with the entire family, with the student, with the parents, and then you allow the student to sort of take the lead on a lot of the meetings as they meet with us individually.
Definitely. And I think too, a lot of the times I'll meet with a student, and if, they're like, my mom says I need to do this and this. And I'm like, okay, is this becoming an argument? Well, yes, of course it's becoming an argument. And I always say, if it is creating that stress between the two of you, tell your parents to call me. And we can have a conversation. They can ask me 100 questions. I will answer them all. But it inserts you into the situation, but really being an outsider, I think, and a trusted person who has information for them. And it really can, I think, cut down on the family arguments too.
Well, I think that's partly where our name comes from too, that we're more coaches than we are, say, teachers. So.
Absolutely.
Well, in the few interactions that I've had with you all, it's great to see you in person. But in our few interactions, I feel like the rapport, the trust was built so quickly. And you look at who is this person, who is this stranger, but there's again, from my personal experience, just there's a way that you go about things that's very warm. It's very disarming, very inviting. And you quickly can joke around and laugh, and it just takes that edge off, that pressure off. Do you think there's a mistake, maybe one more than another, that parents might make in this whole process that is a more difficult one for you to overcome when you see that there, or when you know that that's happened?
Well, a mistake that I've done, and I admit to, I feel like I'm with a confessor here, I had 2 kids of my own, and they're both grown and flown, and one graduated from Duke and the other's a sophomore at University of Miami. So they lived in a house with a college counselor and lived to survive. But one mistake I did with them, with the first child, not child number 1, is I was in my desire to be involved and informed with what she was thinking about in the college process. I would pepper every dinner, every car ride, every dog walk with questions about college. And that kind of was eroding our relationship, because it's like, who wants to walk the dog with mom? Not me, because I know what that's going to mean. So with my second child, we set up a new rule. We would only talk about college Sundays at 2 p.m. And that accomplished 2 things. One, it kept me from peppering every interaction with them with college questions. I certainly kept a list all week long of what I wanted to ask them. So that kept me in my lane. And it also kept, I won't say his name, my charming son, accountable. He knew that at 2 o'clock on Sunday, he better have done what he was supposed to do, because I'm going to be asking him. And oddly, at 1:30 on Sunday, I always heard a little pitter-patter up the stairs. Actually, he's a pretty big kid, so it's more like up the stairs, where I knew he was probably doing stuff he needed to do. But that simple move of just allowing organic, natural dialogue to occur in the places it's supposed to occur, and not eroding it with college talk, is a mistake I think a lot of families do, and that's, to answer your question, it's something I can't help as much with because I'm not in their house and they don't want me in their house, but this kind of technique seems to work well. I've had some families try it and it seems to help.
For the record, she did do a beautiful job with her children.
All right.
Thank you.
And now it is for the record. For
Yes,
everybody
for the
here.
record. Thank you. Can you sign something
It's
too?
great.
He was
It's great.
actually my son's English teacher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Aiden had a pretty good essay. I just said it to him.
I think you just embarrassed him.
There you go. I always embarrass my kids. Yeah.
Well, have you ever recommended a student not pursue that college right away? Maybe take a gap year. What have been some of those? Because that seems to be, maybe it's just COVID, maybe it's just kind of the common theme or trend, gap year. I hear it more and more and more.
Do you want to?
I think that I think we don't typically. I mean, we sort of can bring it up in a conversation that there's always this option, but I think the typical point of a gap year will come up from the student or the family, as an alternative. We always encourage them, though, to apply their senior year to college, and they can always defer, because doing that, what you deposit and then just sort of don't go for a year, but that takes the pressure off. That if you do a gap year, it takes the pressure off to really be able to enjoy it. The other thing about a gap year is if you do decide to do it, you need a plan. It can't just be like, oh, I'll figure it out when I get there. And you can do multiple things. There's a whole gap year association now that you can use, but it doesn't have to be that either. It can sort of be what you want. There's a student that I worked with that's going to be going to Africa for several months. She's going to come home. She's going to try to do an internship. And then maybe get a paying job too. And it depends on your budget. It depends on sort of what your desires are. But also a lot of colleges are offering unique first year experiences. I think the kids, they're seeing that kids want something more than just going to college, living in a dorm. They're having overseas experiences for a year or a semester with a cohort and then coming back to campus. Sometimes you can apply to an international campus of a particular university. So there's a lot of options out there to see if there's, and it still makes it doable in 4 years. And I think that's sort of a key for families as well, that you're not extending it. Gap year extends it. Now it's not a full, cost-wise, you sort of have to, it's not the exact same cost of college, but it is extending the experience. And if you want to get out in 4 years, how can we do that? And lots of colleges are enabling students to make some fun decisions, fun choices.
I think you said about going through that process as you're a senior,
Yes.
the application process. Well, you still have that support system,
Yes.
both outside providers like us and the school itself. I think that's important, even if you are not quite ready for college.
I hear you saying, have a plan.
Yes.
If you think that you want to take a year, if you're not ready to start classes right away, okay, well, what are you going to do with that year? Are you still preparing for that college that you want to go to? Well, let's apply now. Then you're not under pressure to do all these things when you're trying to do your gap year thing. Still leverage the time you're in high school to be prepared for whatever's next.
Absolutely. And I think some parents might be surprised that colleges actually really like it when students take gap years. The way the reps explain it to me is nobody returns from a gap year less mature or less aware of themselves. They all come back a little bit more grown up, a little bit more ready to do college. And the gap year offerings, back in the day, for me, would be throw on a backpack and Jack Kerouac it through Europe. And now it's not that at all. It's serious programs, structured programs that actually just enhance the students' overall experience and existence.
Well, one of the things I see as a common theme through all of our conversations is how you really do act as a coach. You're drawing things out. What does this kid really want? What is this family's dynamic that we want to bring out? So the idea of a coach bringing out the best and then refining it, working with it, helping to improve on it, versus a mentor or a teacher where you're just kind of pouring in. It just underscores the way that you guys can come alongside of a family and take what great potential is already there and make sure that it's not missed. Make sure that it's even aimed in the right direction, so that if I take for me personally, my family, I don't want my kid to flame out. I don't want them to be a 1/3 of the 40% who decided college isn't for me, or this isn't the right time for me. Like that's not the experience that I want. Forget about all the other ripple effects. But anyway, as we wrap up, and I think we could just keep going and talking, but as we wrap up, what are some of your proudest moments?
Your 2 children, of course, but with clients I've worked with, I would say, working with them on the essay, they're always afraid to write about themselves. They're always afraid to come off as if they're bragging about something. So you want to make them comfortable. And when they start talking about themselves, they realize that they have achievements. I was working with a student the other day, and he was talking about his trophy achievement case in his room. And I thought that would be a great structure for what he wanted to write about. And it turned out he had a tangle of track and field medals that he couldn't even remember what they were for. He said, I'll have to untangle these and try to figure out what they were. And you realize that, you've grown a lot over those years of high school, and you do have a lot of achievements, and you just have to have someone help coach you and get those out.
And I think too, just coming out of a family meeting and this visibly seeing the family and the student less stressed, that's huge. That's why we do this, because there is so much anxiety that surrounds this process, and just giving information really helps, and knowing that we can help set up a game plan. And that really is I think that's the key.
And giving them options.
And options, yes. Absolutely.
So where can people find you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so our website is thecollegecoaches.com, and it's very easy to navigate, and there's description of our services, the schools that we have visited all over the U.S. and even internationally, talks about all of our personality profiles, you can get a little sense of who we are, and it offers an average cost estimator. If families are like, okay, I get that it's hourly, but what does that really mean? There's an average cost estimator in there. What else am I forgetting from the website? Schedule appointments directly from the website, a self-scheduling feature, which is fantastic. And
email us.
And you always email. Yes, all our emails are there. Yes, with a question.
There's as many options to contact you all as there are colleges out there.
Exactly,
Seriously, you made it easy. You made it easy for us. Whatever the preference is.
Exactly. And we should mention that there's a option on the website to schedule a free 20-minute introductory call where you have nothing to lose except 20 minutes. And you have to listen to a few cheesy jokes probably on the call, but you can just say, hey, this is our situation. Tell me more about how this works. It's 20 minutes, it's free, and you can get a sense of, okay, this might be a good idea or not. Yeah. And the book is available on Amazon.com, and currently the title will remain Sex, Drugs, and the SAT, Getting Out of High School, Getting into College. All
right. Well, that's good to know. Good to know. Well, again, thank you so much for coming in and traveling all the way to State College, Pennsylvania, to meet with us. It really is good to be in person, to meet you all in person. And thank you for the important work that you do. I know we only heard a few stories, but I'm sure there are lots and lots of families that would say it's the college coaches that they're the reason why my son or daughter is doing great where they're at. And your tagline is phenomenal, right? So I wholeheartedly agree with it. The college selection process is one game you've got to win. I love it. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. I mean, I look like we talked about Beyonce, and I mean, there's just so much I can do. So I appreciate the opportunity to
Well,
share with
a little bit.
yeah, and I
my
think
story.
Ryan,
There's some technology solution for Greg, just kind of fix him. That would be very helpful to both of us, really.
yes, I'm the only one that could put my hours in.
That's true. That's true. That is true. Or figure out what 0.5 means.
At first, I was like, "What do you mean 25? If I work 25 minutes, that's not like a standard time." And then I'm like, "Oh, okay, the fraction."
Do I look here?
You can look at
Here?
me.
You look
can
at
look
you.
at me.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're going to get that view there. We'll get. Where would
Crowd
you like
goes
to?
wild.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to go over?
Oh, we're still on camera?
Oh, yeah.
And after, so.
Oh, okay. Now that you've asked us, we're all like, I can't be
Quick,
funny anymore.
Kathleen, pull up your chair.
Greg, what's your favorite thing about me? Just limit it to one. Just one.
I can't just limit it to one,
It's
so
hard.
it's your sense of humor.
Clearly.
Even if you can't tell a joke right now.
I am Beyonce.
Yo, well, yeah, that.
Yes.
Yes.
And did you know that Lizzo is asked me to do her next album because I've got this down now. Hair toss, check my nails.
She asked you to buy it?
No, to be
Okay.
honest.
Oh, okay.
No.
That's one
She
story. I
hired
don't
me
believe.
to just laugh at her jokes. I always say that.
I will say one of the goofiest parents that I've ever worked with, don't worry, I'm not going to say a name, told me that she selected her, the colleges where her student would apply based on the engagements announcements in the newspaper. Because she said, they look happy. Where did they go to school? They look
Right.
happy. Where'd they go to school? And I politely said, well, I think everybody looks happy in their engagement announcements, but let's look at the list you have. And we started.
And it
from
worked
there.
out.
Oh, it worked
Right.
out. Mhm.